Today we are reviewing Labyrinth Paths of Destiny, which has no relation to The Witcher Path of Destiny. You only wanted one path? Well, go see The Witcher. You want multiple paths? Well, time to find out your destiny, the destiny of Labyrinth, of what's going to happen to you when you're trapped in this horrible, mystical labyrinth. This is a game that was pitched to me to review a very long time ago, and I have been delaying reviewing it because I could just never seemingly get it to the table, but it was pitched as something very accessible, sort of a Catan entry-level weight to introduction to dungeon crawling and sort of tile laying. And I actually agree with that assessment. So if you are sort of new to the hobby, you don't have that many board games, this might actually interest you. Or if you happen to like games such as The Night Cage, this might interest you as well. And that should tell you everything you need to know if you know my personal opinion on The Night Cage. Or maybe if you also like games like Munchkin, or games with a lot of take that, I feel like you may enjoy this game as well. Actually, I think this gives a much more exciting experience than The Night Cage, but we'll get into that in a second. I'm going to explain to you the game, and then I'm going to talk about the positives and the negatives about this production copy. This was sent to me a long time ago to review, and hey, I am now fulfilling my obligation. So here's the map. Here is an empty labyrinth. The goal of the game is to collect a key that, well, one can start right outside your door, but you're not allowed to collect that one. So if I belong here, I must collect any key that is other than these keys that are sitting right outside me as I sift through my tokens to find them, and then make it to the central chamber to win the game. But that's not all of how you win. You must also punch somebody else in the face in that central chamber, getting them to the central chamber, or taking out one of these many monsters that might lurk and roam the hallways. So on your turn, if you turn to this very handy player aid, we'll just try to turn to your very handy, well, I guess we'll try to zoom in. We'll turn to this maybe we'll zoom in a little bit. We've turned to this very handy player aid. This will tell you the things that you can do on your turn, each of which will cost you one action, and you have 2 actions to spend on your turn. Some things cost you 2 actions. Those are special abilities for your character. Sorry if I'm loud. I'm now standing beside the microphone. The first thing you can do on your turn is construct. You can construct a tile. You take a tile from the top and you place it anywhere you want in the location. And that's important because some tiles have different things on them. Some tiles are nothing, and then some tiles may have traps on them. So if you happen to draw a tile with a trap, well, hey, you may want to put that trap in front of your opponent instead of in front of you, and wait until you put the nice clear pathway in front of you so that you can get to the main room a little bit easier. And that's the construct action. There's also a move action, moving from one tile to the next. You'll see that each tile has a specific number of little pathways, and also moving from one pathway to another also takes a move. It's actually called an ascending and descending, and you have to roll a little stat check to see if you do it successfully or if you take some fatigue damage. You can also rest on your turn to get rid of that fatigue damage, because if you ever get to 3 fatigue damage, you have to lose your turns and just rest while everybody else gets to do stuff. Because you got too tired. You spent too long jumping up and down the walls of Labyrinth. I'm sorry to tell you, you're tired and you need to take a break. Also on these tiles, there are these little items. So whenever items are turned up, you would take a random item token from the supply, flip them up, and then search through this deck of cards to find out what the item does. You search through until you find the actual picture, and you put it kind of off to the side, and then whoever ends up picking up that item also gets control of the card so that they know what their item does. Items give you a lot of great abilities, efficiency of movement, all that sort of stuff. However, don't worry if there isn't a trap in a location and you want to ruin someone's day. On your turn, you can just set a trap. You just explode a trap from the nether regions, and so that it is in someone's path. And if they enter it, they have to flip it over and then roll the dice to see if they pass the trap or not. In that case, I didn't. Then I would consult this handy dandy sheet of all the traps, seeing that this would make me lose 1 health and relocate to the corridor my character was previously in. So I would have to be teleported back, and then if I wanted to keep going that way again, well, then I could attempt it on my next action. The other things that you can do on your turn is move the golem. There's a golem that is in the center of the building. You flip one of these golem cards, which will have a number of feet on it, and that's the number of feet and spaces you can move the golem. And guess what? If the golem hits a character, they get sent all the way back to their starting location. Basically, the golem squashes them, and then they wake up in this Groundhog Day of a labyrinth. Monsters are a little less severe, but you can also move monsters around who can attack an opponent, or you as an opponent can attack a monster or another player. Basically, attacking works very similar. Each character has their own different attack stats. You both roll dice, the higher number wins. And then finally, you can do a number of special abilities depending upon your character. The game, and this is what made me excited about it really, the game comes with a number of different characters, all with their own special abilities and unique twists on the game. And then a little thing down here that shows you the player count in which they're allowed to be used. You get all these different characters, all with something different that you can do. To spend, you can punch yourself in the face to make yourself more efficient with the Berserker, the Sister of War. You can not receive a stamina token because you're so acrobatic you can jump up and down. Whenever you're at full health, you get a bonus on all of your attack rolls. The character that I played in the game that I played was this spooky, scary clown, the Conjurer. And the Conjurer, whenever they explored a tile, they could look at the tile and then they could put it face down somewhere so that when somebody stepped on it, then they could decide, okay, you're actually going to be sent this way instead of this way. And so could pre-plan and could swap tiles around, which I thought was pretty cool. But that's the gist of the game. You have to then keep avoiding the golem, which will be pushed and moved around, construct a whole labyrinth with these different tiles, be the first player to get to the middle, also having had your key, and then move a monster enough to the middle so that you can punch it in the face and win, because I guess this altar in the middle requires a blood sacrifice so that the game lasts a little bit longer. And so here's one of the main issues of this game, is that it feels like a lot of these mechanics are just designed to make the game go longer. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's more fun, it just means it's longer. And so that's why I attribute it to Munchkin as well, because there's always a chance for on your turn, you can use your actions to slow somebody else down. If they're going towards the main center area and the golem's there, well, yes, you've got to move the golem so that it teleports them back to start. If they have a bunch of hallways that don't have traps in them, well, yeah, you've got to put a bunch of traps in them so that hopefully as they make their way through, they fail the rolls and then die, and guess what? Go back to start. This idea really hits home in terms of its deliberate slowness by when you get to the main area, and by the fact that they include these monsters and say that these monsters are an expansion, an add-on. And in fact, they don't even recommend you playing with these monsters for your first game. And so then the only way to win is to meet somebody else in the center and punch them in the face. And what that means is that you're just stuck in the middle waiting for someone else to go get their key and finally go up into the middle and then hit them in the head. And if there weren't any monsters in the middle to fight, that would be excruciating. It would be excruciating if you got a key and went to the middle and then just had to wait around while other people tried to get through traps and collected items. And so that there kind of represents my biggest disappointment about the game, and kind of why I was hesitant and waiting to play this for so long. I almost didn't do a review, but they sent me the copy graciously, and I do think that this could be for someone out there. It's definitely not for me, but I know there are people who would take enjoyment in creating out this labyrinth, going through, passing checks, and trying to be the most efficient as possible. I can see that being interesting. I love that they've spent so much time in creating all of these unique asymmetric characters. Each one of these, their abilities actually feel pretty fun. Like, I really enjoyed as the Conjurer, that I could manipulate the board in a way. My mother was playing as the archer, and she could move 2 spaces if she had a straight line in one action. And so she was able to kind of blaze through, create a path, and then blaze through it and really run through and run to the finish line and create that sense of a race. But the only reason why she won is because we were getting a bit tired, and my father decided that he didn't want to move the golem into her space, and hoped that the very easy monster to defeat would defeat her. It didn't happen, and she won, and we were all fine with what happened. I think this game has a very high potential of overstaying its welcome, and if you are a very serious gamer, well, you probably haven't heard of it, and I think you haven't heard of it for good reason. If you are just new to the hobby, though, and you don't know terms like dungeon crawler, if your basis is sort of Munchkin and Catan, I would rather play Catan over this, but I see the parallels to Catan with the fact that there are, you know, just a bunch of tiles to flip over. I think this could be the introduction of a lot of mechanics in a semi-interesting way for people. I don't think this is one that's ever going to stay too long in someone's collection as they grow to appreciate the hobby, but this was pitched to me as a gateway game. It was pitched to me as that sort of introductory step, and I can see how it could be that for a lot of people, or some people, I should say. Unfortunately for me, there isn't a chance that I'm going to play this game again. I played it once, and that was more than enough. There was a huge complaint about the size of the text on these cards. The rule book is a bit of a slog to get through because they've decided to replace words with iconography, but still write it in English, and just replace keywords with iconography that's so small that you have to look at it through a magnifying glass to figure out. And then you forget what it's actually talking about when it could just say, hey, when you go over an item, and then put the symbol next to it. Rather than just saying, hey, when you go over a green space, get a red space and roll for purple. It's not a good rule book. These player aids are minuscule in their font size. And there's so much space on these cards as well, right? There's so much extra space that you could fill. There are 2 sides to this card, and yet they decided to shrink it down so that only the girl from My Hero Academia, who's in the support course, who has the zoom in eyes, could read it. It's a deep cut. So while this game has potential, this being the 4th edition of this same system, I would wait for the 8th edition, to be honest. For me, it was definitely more enjoyable than I expected it to be, and I was able to have a fun time with my parents, but we all kind of agreed that it was one that we would never really ever want to play again. They liked the asymmetrical characters. It was sort of their first time really meshing with a character that had its own power, and I think they really enjoyed that idea and that concept, and so that was fun to see. And so I give it that sort of credit, but there are just so many other better games out there, and unless your favorite game is Munchkin and you want to take that experience to a bit of a board, I would continue to erase this one from your memory or forget that it exists, because it just isn't doing enough. It took me 1.5 years to muster up the courage to be able to play it, and it was better than I expected, but it still certainly isn't enough to warrant being in my personal collection. So there you go. That's a review for Labyrinth Paths of Destiny. To also Paths of Destiny credit, I think it has more interesting mechanics than The Witcher Path of Destiny. So to all you Kickstarter addicts out there, good luck. You should get this instead. But yeah, just a pretty huge miss for me, but hopefully there's somebody out there who sees this video and says, no, you know what? I don't want complexity. I like that sort of take that. I like a lot of take that in my games. I think running for the pathways and seeing what comes up and building this labyrinth would give me some satisfaction. And yeah, to you I say, check it out. To everybody else, probably not. Anyway, my name's Chris George. I don't have a catchphrase, and I don't have any better news for you than this. I honestly contemplated not even making this review, but my personal philosophy is that if I say yes to a game, I will provide some sort of coverage on it. That's what you can expect from this channel. I'm not going to be a channel that just gets rid of games, forces companies to spend their money to send it out, even though maybe the company might have preferred me not put anything else out on it. Hopefully I gave a reasonable breakdown of the gameplay itself, and you can decide for yourself if it's right for you or not. Let me know if I should change my personal review philosophy, but that's what I'm trying to do, trying to make good on promises that I made in the past and get them off of my conscience and onto yours. So thanks for being here. Hit the like button if you like unbiased, somewhat, I guess, brutal coverage. I know I say things sort of matter-of-factly, and my tone can make things sound really, really mean and horrible. So I feel bad for the creators, but my loyalty will always be to the consumers, and that's why this video exists. Anyway, regardless, if no matter who you are, if you are part of this game's team or if you're not, I hope you have yourself a not too horrible day.